Ladies and gentlemen, welcome. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Stuart Lang. I'm chair of the Anglo-Omani Society, and it's my great pleasure to be chairing this webinar today. Jane Bickmore-Jaffer is an old friend of ours from the time that we were in Oman, and my wife and I have greatly admired her work from a very early stage. You will have seen her CV on the introduction to this webinar. You will know that she was, to begin with, a primary school teacher and started primary schools in Oman. But what she's really famous for, as far as we're concerned today, is the Let's Read program, getting that going under the auspices of the charitable organization Dar Al Atta'a. And this program is aimed at promoting the love of reading among children in Oman. They've set up Maktabati, Oman's first mobile library, and now have a charity bookshop in the Oman Avenues Mall. So it's a great pleasure and honor for us to have Jane with us today. She is in Muscat, and I am in the headquarters of the Anglo-Omani Society in London. But we're taking advantage of the technology for you all to join wherever you are to hear Jane speak. And afterwards, at the end of it, we will have time for question and answer, and you can put in your questions in the Q&A box at the bottom of your screens or wherever it is on your screens. And we should be done in about an hour, which will give you ample time to get away for the Scotland-Oman cricket match, which takes place later this evening at 6 o'clock Oman time. Myself, I shall find it very difficult to know who to cheer for, being of Scottish origin myself, but of course having great loyalty towards Oman. But enough of cricket, over to books. Jane.
Thank you very much indeed, Stuart, and thank you very much to the Society for giving me this wonderful opportunity to talk about Let's Read. I really appreciate that. As you said, I came from London. I actually grew up in Blackheath. And I was a primary school teacher there, and but I've been here in Oman for 41 years, believe it or not. And in that time, obviously, I don't know, I think I'm a kind of a creative person. And I think when you're a creative person, you're always wanting to start something new. So it's in my character, if you like, to try and start a school or a business or a charity or to write a book. Or even to set up a literature festival, but more about that later. So yes, I set up a nursery school in the 80s, and then I created the nursery section at the British School in late 80s. And in the 90s, I ran a holistic centre for classes and courses and therapies and things like that, Elixir Holistic Centre. It was actually Julia Cameron's book, The Artist's Way, that really got my creative juices flowing. This is a book which helps people who have a mental, block, if you like, a creative block, be it for writers or artists, whatever, and it gives you a sort of series of exercises to do in order to overcome that block. So I started writing really from that, and from that I started as a book. I wrote as a book actually. My father was not well at the time, and so we collaborated on it. He's an artist, and so he did the illustrations, and I wrote a little poetry book called Women on the Edge, which was kind of to do with exploring different experiences of the female gender. I've always run different groups since I've been here. I've always been interested in doing that, sort of support groups, and I started a writers group. And one of the first exercises we were all asked to do was to write the first paragraph of the book. And out of that came my first book, which was a romantic thriller, Scent of a Rose, which is about a girl, the centers around a girl called Rosie, who comes to live in Oman. And she's escaping a stalker, and she gets lost in the desert and eventually is rescued by the Bedouins. So that was something that I enjoyed writing. But as a teacher, I know that it's very important for children to love reading. Reading informs and educates us about the world we live in. It improves our focus and concentration. Good readers obviously get better grades and more career opportunities. Reading develops the child's imagination, enabling the child to think out of the box when they're solving problems. And when we read, we build up our vocabulary, which enables us to express ourselves more clearly. And this in turn really improves confidence and self-esteem. When we read about the difficulties faced by real or fictitious characters in books, we ask ourselves, how would we handle that situation? So we learn to understand ourselves and find ways to overcome the obstacles in our own life. And when we take a walk in another person's shoes, of course, we end up developing empathy for others. And, you know, in times of COVID or, you know, the stressful world of which we live in now, just curling up with a good book is a great way to relieve stress, which I do believe that children feel as much as adults. We know that children love reading about characters they can relate to. So back in 2007, there were very few books in Oman which were specifically written for children, which had, you know, sort of Omani background or environment. You know. So I decided to write a children's book about a young Omani girl who is rescued by a dolphin. And this book, Dana and the Dolphin, was well received. And soon I was invited to go to schools and start reading stories to children. So at this point, I'm going to just start my PowerPoint presentation. And tell you a little bit about our Let's Read journey. So let's just move it on a bit. The Let's Read program was started by a group of Dar Al Atta'a volunteers in 2007 with the aim of promoting the love of reading to children in Oman. And as I've just explained, there are lots of good reasons for doing that. And so one of the things that we thought we would do, first of all, was set up libraries and playrooms in schools and hospitals and institutions, and try to also create a mobile library. So here are some of the people who helped me along the way, lots and lots of volunteers. It's been wonderful. We've been so lucky to have, you know, so many people have come along and said, can they help in some way? And what we've done is we've gone into schools to read to children. And when we started, we thought, how can we start this campaign? So we did book drives and basically collected books from. Okay, yeah. So once we had made some money from our book sales, we started buying children's books in Arabic. Obviously, we needed to buy Arabic books for most of our, you know, to promote the love of reading to children, especially in the interior. We started to make playrooms in hospitals, and we got quite a lot of lovely students who came along to help us, painting murals and making trolleys and playing with the children, which was wonderful, giving them lots of educational activities. We set up a library in a school, and we also made a media centre in one school. And as I say, we've had lots of support from high school students in different schools across especially in the capital, who have collected books from us, from their school, from their colleagues and their peer group school. Even young girls of 8 and 9 have done an amazing job standing up in assembly and asking the other children to, you know, sort of donate books to us. We created a leaflet offering parents ideas on how to encourage their children to read. Because obviously this is a partnership, isn't it, between the parents, the teachers and the children. And it's very important to have the parents' involvement in promoting reading. And I also think that if parents aren't seen reading themselves, then children don't really sort of feel that reading is important. So it's always good that's one of the reasons why we have a charity bookshop for all ages and books of all types for all ages for adults as well. We hold an annual children's writing competition because obviously reading and writing go hand in hand. And we give the children great prizes. We usually have some super sponsors who give us money so that we can you know, give children, reward them for their work. But one of the things that they really love is actually seeing their own work in print. And that's something that we've done along the way. With one of our first writing competitions, we asked the children to take a traditional tale from their own country and to actually change it in some way, change the tale. So reverse the roles, change the ending, whatever, change the error. And so we had some very interesting stories and lovely illustrations as well. And so we published that book, and the children like to read it because it's so funny when they see that their traditional tales have been changed in some way. Another year we asked, in fact we've done this one twice, stories from Oman, we did stories from the souk, and we asked the children either to research after their parents, their grandparents, if there were any old stories, old folklore that they would like to share, and they'd write it down, retell the folklore, or to make up a story set in Oman somewhere. So again, we've had some really super stories in that book. More recently, we asked the children to write about their hometown. This one we did in English and Arabic, and we had a tremendous range of stories, being that Oman has such an international community as well as a great, big population of Omani children. So we had stories across Oman, about places like Nizwa. And we asked the children to say what made that particular town special to them. Was it someone special lived there, something happened there, something was produced there, or whatever. So we had stories from right away Sydney, Tehran, Sohar, Sur, Nizwa, Leeds, places in India, Sri Lanka, China, Dumpling, the whole range. So that was a good one. Later we did this one, which was probably my favorite one, and I think the children were quite amazed at what came out of this book. And that is that we asked them to research their ancestors. Now, something very close to my heart. I really love, I'm not a storyteller as such, but I love telling people stories. And what we asked the children to do was to tell their ancestor stories. And so these were the children who told the stories, and these were the ancestors' pictures. And there were some very interesting stories. For example, two boys in Nizwa, their grandfathers, they were in the same class, but their grandfathers were on opposite sides of the Jabal Atta'a war. So that was quite amazing. And we had, as you can see, all sorts of different people were, and I think, what's good about that is that they saw how difficult and tough some of their ancestors had their life, for example, in partition, or, sort of, even we have one who had been in a concentration camp, so they found out an awful lot about their ancestry, and I think it helps children to have empathy for people who are fleeing war-torn areas or dealing with poverty. There was one boy who wrote about his grandmother who'd been a housemaid in Kuwait and left her children. All sorts of interesting stories. So that was a really favorite one. And then more recently, we've just done this one a couple of years back. And this was, the children were asked to find their favorite place in Oman and write about it and send a photograph or draw a picture. And that was lovely also because there's so many wonderful places to visit in Oman. So I think it's very nice for children to be able to pick up a book like this and know where other children, what they like particularly, which different places they like. So that was great. A little bit further on, our first Maktabati bus was bought for us by the Women's Guild of Oman. Maktabati was launched in 2013, and Sally Sleep, who was the president of the Women's Guild at the time, came down the soup with me, and we bought material to make a mattress in the bus. We ripped out all the seats inside the bus and took the bus down to a carpentry workshop in Rui. And we were very lucky actually, because Sally's husband was a very, very good designer. He'd done the Orient Express, I think. And so he was able to, design the interior as a library, as a bookshop library. So we were very, very grateful to him for doing that. And we were lucky also that BP generously sponsored Maktabati in 2015. Unfortunately, we don't have any sponsorship at the moment. Here you can see some of I always felt it was very important that we had male librarians, because children need to see that reading is an important activity for men as well as women, for fathers, not only mothers. And also because, of course, they have to travel across the country, going to festivals and fairs and staying sometimes for days on end in different places. So we felt it was better to have two men in that role. So we provide children with access to good books at reasonable prices. Unfortunately, we couldn't make it just a library whereby, we go every month and we come back and we change our books. So what we said, because we only have, at the time we only had one bus. And so what we said would be that you can exchange a book, or you can buy a book for obviously a very supplemented amount, just £1 500 pages, like that. So that's what we charge people to go and buy a book. And it works very well when you go to schools, because the children prime, the teachers prime the children to bring 500 pages or a real, and they go on the bus for a set amount of time, and of course they love it because they're missing double maths, and they choose their books and read on the bus. But we also encourage parents to read to their children in a variety of ways. As I said, from the leaflet that we do, and we encourage children to come on board the bus with their parents. So here you can see visits to schools. That's always the most successful, because often at festivals children run on and run off, whereas when it's a structured school visit, it works very well. So we stay in one school for a week, so that 12, 15 children can come at a time onto the bus. So there they are reading on the bus. And as I said, we charge a nominal amount of children to do that. So then we started a bookshop. We had so many books that had been donated to us that we actually bought a porter cabin to store them all in. And we decided that we had enough books that we could actually open a charity bookshop. So we opened first of all in the Curran complex in Curran. And we had various people, authors, come and give talks, and we obviously recommend certain books every week. We do that even to this day, but this was way back when we first started in the Curran complex. We were honoured to receive a very special visitor in November 2016. Her Royal Highness Duchess of Cornwall is a strong supporter of campaigns to encourage children to read. So here you can see all of us in the Curran complex with the Duchess. And it was quite funny because people were coming out of Alfair with their trolleys and doing a double take when they suddenly saw that the Duchess of Cornwall was sitting talking to children in the atrium there. So that was quite funny. And she visited the bus as well, which was wonderful. So how do we fund our activities? Well, we have generous individuals, or sometimes we get corporate sponsorship. The Women's Guild of Oman have been wonderful in their support over the years. And we do lots of fundraising activities, which helps also as well. And we also get children to do things like readathons at school to help us a little bit. Obviously, we have to pay for the librarian and the bus driver. And obviously in the shop, we have a librarian, we have a team of volunteers who help as well. Although I say that because we did have until COVID, and then since the pandemic, you know, things have been, we haven't had the volunteer support until now. It's starting to come back now, but it has been a bit difficult. Let's Read signed a contract with Lulu International. We opened a new charity bookshop and a children's library in Oman Avenue in October 2018. And we were so thrilled because Lulu International actually had all the bookcases and a huge big sort of mock bus built in China especially, and you know, they've been absolutely wonderful support to us. Here you can see children dressed up as different characters from the book. We had Dr. Anna Fansett came and did some storytelling. She was a regular until she left the university, but she was working. And we get lots of school children coming to the library area, which is the children's library, although some of the books are for sale there. We have like two sections, and one is specifically for children, and the other is more, you know, books for adults and children. And we've had lots of different activities, and this is just a few of the things that we've been doing, you know, over the years. And here you can see a writing workshop and book club meetings going on. You know, we have lots and lots of different activities going on, mostly, well, virtually every week there's something. So yeah, these are our overheads, as I've mentioned, things that we have to pay for. Sometimes we manage to get the insurance of the bus covered. We usually have to pay for the fuel. Of course, unfortunately, the bus hasn't been operating during COVID, although now it's started again. But we still haven't been able to go back to school. At the moment, we're in the waterfront at the moment with the buses there. This is our second bus, which was donated by the members of OPAL, which is the, you know, the oil companies, got together and very kindly donated a bus. And again, this was custom made for us. This was much, you know, better in a way because it's custom made as a library in China. And so the children love it because the nice thing is it's got its own generator. You can have the AC on without keeping the engine on. And it was more, you know, obviously built for as a library, so it's great. Just recently, you probably know that we've had a cyclone here in Oman, which was, I think if they say it affected more than 23,000 people in Kabura and Suwait, in that area. And in fact, one of our volunteers took this picture just about 10 days after it had happened. It was dreadful. You can imagine how bad it was. You know, uprooted trees and abandoned vehicles and just flooded houses and power cuts and all sorts of things. So just recently we took a group of volunteers to Al Kabura, and we were lucky actually because the electricity had just been restored in the majlis, and so we were able to go into the majlis. The guys were cleaning it as we arrived. And we took lots of games and toys and books and clothes and shoes and goodness knows what else to, you know, and we did face painting, and just, it was lovely to see the children laughing and happy for a little while because they were pretty traumatized, as you can imagine. So we sang songs, told stories, and encouraged the children to talk about their experiences. Because obviously, you know, I think when you talk, you realise you're not the only one. You realise you're not alone and you're united. So I hope it helped a little bit, but it has been very encouraging to see so many volunteers from Dar Al Atta'a, Let's Read, and hundreds of other charitable organisations and groups across the country just coming together to help those in that specific region of Oman. And I think they will certainly rebuild the houses there. Now, plans for the future. We're hoping that we will open a children's library in a kind of impoverished area of Sea. This little boy here joined in. We had something called Reading Aid that we had donated. It's an online reading scheme. And he did very well in this reading scheme. So yeah, we've got a very lovely Dutch lady who works here in Seed, trying to offer like a homework club for children, so they can come and do their homework and do some different, activities. And so the idea is that we would take perhaps this particular house, and if we can afford the rent, we get some sponsorship and start a little library. And we'd like to do that across the country. I mean, we have a big, grandiose library here in Muscat, but I think, some people don't go out of their villages very often. And the idea of coming to the bright lights of Muscat, so it's very nice if you could have a little place that's in your neighborhood that you can go to sit and read. A lot of them don't have the internet, whatever. So anyway, that's one thing that we'd like to do. Because we've got so many books, we're hoping to start a sort of pop-up second charity bookshop quite shortly. We're hoping to do that. And on this Saturday, as you can see, we're going to be celebrating our 14th year, which is exciting. So these are the things that we're hoping to do in the future. And also, I'm very, very excited to be able to announce that we will be holding Muscat's very first literature festival. It will be a sort of a hybrid. Some of it will be online and some of it will be in person. We've had, I think we've got about 25 authors. Mr. Stuart Lang himself is one of them, who very kindly have recorded themselves being interviewed, if you like, about their writing and their books, and we're really excited to be able to share that. So I think it's going to happen next month. We've had quite a few delays because of COVID and then, sponsorship and whatever, but we're really sort of, with gung-ho ready to go ahead with that now. So that's about it as far as, what we've been doing with Let's Read. It's an ongoing project. We're always in need of volunteers. If anyone of you lives in Muscat wants to come along, we're on the 3rd floor of Oman Avenue Mall, and we always need help with sorting books, selling books, also coming to various projects that we're doing, like, starting the new shop, starting the library. We're always in need of help. Another thing which we are also doing, because we desperately need funds, we don't have any sponsorship at the moment. Over the years, we've done lots of different fundraising, like jazz nights, Bollywood evenings, quiz nights. And we did an incognito art exhibition, which our friend Kathy had been to one in Ireland, which was very successful. And so she suggested we try it. And the idea is that you don't know who's actually created the artwork, it's their name's only on the back. And so until you buy it, you don't know whose work you're buying. You might recognize the style or whatever, but it might be a high school student or it might be a famous artist. Now, we did have art from across not only this country, but from a few other places as well. Anyone who's been involved with Oman was very happy to send us some work, which was lovely. And so we're holding another one. 25th of November is the deadline for sending it to us. And then we're going to be holding it in the beginning of December in the waterfront, actually. So that's very exciting. And that's really all I have to say about Let's Read at the moment. But I just would mention that I have written a children's book called Sariya and the Turtles. I'm sure lots of you have been to, I'm just going to stop sharing that. A lot of you have been to the Dar Al Atta'a to see the turtles. And so I wrote a story, Sariya and the Turtles. And this is a little book about a girl who goes to visit the turtles. Sariya is actually my granddaughter. And so it talks about the 5 of the 7 species of sea turtles which are in Oman, and it gives a lot of information at the back of the book as well. There's some lovely pictures actually were done by the children from the Sultan School. So I had 2 wonderful children who helped me with the book, and they had to follow a brief, and they had to work together and collaborate on the pictures. So it was great to get that done. And then I have a new one, which is just coming out shortly. Another grandson, another grandchild. Rafe is Amazing Dinosaur Adventure. And at the back of the book will be some pictures of bones, dinosaur bones, which were actually found in Oman, in the Al Qud region. So yeah, this is a preview for, for the book. It will be coming out in Arabic and English very shortly. And I've written a couple of books about Zanzibar, which Stuart will know. And one was this book, which was about Saud bin Ahmed al-Busaydi, who sadly died shortly, a little while ago. He had lived in Zanzibar. His sister was married to Dolphin Khalifa. And so he had lots and lots of very interesting stories to tell. And I sat with him, I think, every Wednesday morning for a year. Took down all his stories, and then we put it into a book. And I think it was very interesting. And out of that book, I got interested in writing about this lady, which I'm sure some of you know about, Lady Selma or Emily Root, because apparently in Saud's house there was someone who knew this lady years and years ago. She died, I think, in 1924, but born 1844. And so when I read her story, which was, I think she's the first Omani woman to write her autobiography back in 1888, I decided I wanted to sort of bring her story into the 21st century. So I wrote a historical fiction book about her life, and it's just inspired by her story, which was actually very tragic, but very interesting. Okay, well, I don't really have anything more to share with you. If you have any questions you'd like to ask me, or want to ask something, please do.
Well, Jane, thank you very much. That was really most interesting and very heartening in all sorts of ways to see the work that you've been doing to encourage reading among young Omanis. We've had various comments in the chat room and on the Q&A. Some are just lovely comments of admiration for your work and enthusiasm about individual books. Can I use Chairman's prerogative and ask the first question, and then there will be plenty of time to take other people's as well. That's about it's about residents in Oman, people living in Oman. It seems to me, but I may have got this wrong, that your focus has all been on English and Arabic and on actual Omani nationals, Omani children. Have you done any work on Let's Read with other children? For example, there's a very large population from the Indian subcontinent in Oman, and a large number of Indian schools. Do you do any work with Let's Read with them, or do you reckon that they read enough as it is?
Well, we went, the Maktabati bus went down to Sohar and was absolutely swamped by children from the Indian school. So yes, we do. We get a very good response from children from the Indian schools, and we do go to Indian schools, Pakistani schools. We go to all the different schools to read to children. I might read my book. We've also got a wonderful Hakawatiya called Mesa Al-Mandari. She's one of our team, and she makes puppets, and she does a most amazing Arabic presentations. But we have, in the writing competition, we have children from the French school, from all the schools, Egyptian schools, and whatever, Chinese, Filipino schools. And so, we get everyone together when we do the prize giving. We try to have a prize for every school. So, if there isn't a prize winner outright, then there'll be one prize for, the best one from that school. So we have in our shop, we actually have a lot of foreign books because people have given us books, French books, Chinese, Hindi, whatever. So we have a foreign language section as well. Yes, so we definitely do, but I suppose you could say our focus has been, especially with Maktabati, to go into the interior where there's less access to books. But I do think books are very expensive, you know, even in the bookshops are available here in like Borders, whatever. But they are expensive, and our idea is that we want to get everyone reading, whoever they are, wherever they are in the market. So I think that's the answer to that. But yeah, we could do a lot more.
Yeah, that's very encouraging. Truly, truly international. So I think there's some lack of clarity among one questioner, and certainly from among myself, about whether the buses are both back on the. You've got two buses now from Maktabati. Are they both back on the road, both going out?
Well, I'm sorry to say, Stuart, but unfortunately we had to sell one bus, the first bus, which kind of broke our hearts really, but it had to be done because, you know, we've had 2 years where we've had to maintain our staff and, you know, carry on with our shop. And so we felt, because the bus was getting quite old, that we would sell that to at least allow us to carry on doing our work in other ways. And so, yes, we are back, as I say, the bus is back on the road in terms of that it's now part of the waterfront, which is a new shopping mall, in the evenings for children from 5 to 9. But hello, sorry.
Yeah, we lost you for a moment, but you're now back.
Yeah, so definitely, you know, we want to go back to schools, but it hasn't been possible yet because, in fact, a lot of schools have only just started to go back. I mean, you know, they've been working online most of the time over the last year or so, nearly 2 years. And so, yeah, we haven't, you know, it's been a bit difficult. And so the staff from the bus have had to be incorporated into the bookshop, working in the bookshop. And yeah, so we were a little bit, I mean, obviously everyone was incapacitated by COVID. But we are hoping that we can start to visit schools again soon. Let's see.
But that will just be using Maktabati 2, the second bus.
It would only be using Maktabati 2 at the moment, which means that we can't go, you know, as many places as we'd like or as far as we like. No. Because, you know, if we have to start paying, like before, when they go to the HRH Festival, we have to pay for the staff to stay in a hostel. For their food and, you know, whatever. So it kind of all adds up. And if you haven't got sponsorship, it's very difficult to manage. But we're hopeful. We're all hopeful, I think, that things are going to get back to some sense of normality soon.
And is the first bus definitively, as it were, written off or sold, or do you think you might get it back on the road?
We've sold it to someone, and I don't know what he's done to it, or whether he's changing it back into a normal bus, which is a great shame, but it was just one of those things that we felt we had to do if we were going to be able to maintain our staffing.
Well, here's another question. To what extent have you worked alongside government partners from many of the relevant ministries, Ministry of Education or other, to promote reading and literacy? Do you operate entirely independently, or how does the collaboration work with government departments?
I suppose we have worked with ministries, and one of the main things is that Dar Al Atta'a, our parent company charity, actually has to apply for permission for us to do all our activities and events through the Ministry of Social Affairs. So first of all, we are very much part of Ministry of Social Affairs. They know what we're doing at any one time. With the Literature Festival, we had to go through the Ministry of Education, Social Affairs and Information. And I think it also then went to IFS. So we've had quite a lot to get permission for that. But we have now got permission for all of that. Education and tourism, even when we've worked on certain books, like when we did the book about My Favourite Place in Oman, we collaborated a little bit with the Ministry of Tourism and Ministry of Information. Obviously, all our books have to be approved by the Ministry of Information before we can, publish them or have them sold. And so yes, but it's not really, I mean, Dar Al Atta'a obviously work quite hand in hand with Ministry of Social Affairs, but we're kind of independent, but we come under their umbrella. So I wouldn't say that there's a close collaboration. I would love for the Ministry of Education to have help us with, you know, funding or anything, but I don't think that's likely really at the moment. But yeah, I mean, we're hoping that we can maybe get some corporate sponsorship again.
Thank you very much. We have a question about a national library. Can you tell us, is there such a thing as a national research library like the British Library, or are there government libraries in the towns and villages and indeed in the capital area as well for people to visit, adults and children?
Well, I mean, there are libraries in schools, and I have visited many. Some of them are good and some of them not so good, to be honest. I don't think many villages and towns have libraries. Some of them have bookshops. The Big Children's Public Library is wonderful, but I will say that I think their timings are a bit off because they're not always open. I think they're open sort of ministry hours. Correct me if I'm wrong on that, but research library, actually, funnily enough, our librarian who started with us is the librarian at SQU Library, and I think that is the best place if you wanted to do any research, would be to go to the SQU Library, the University Library. Of course, there are several universities now, and I'm sure they will have libraries, but you know, I feel that there certainly are not enough libraries in this country, that's for sure.
Thank you. Now we have a question from Amina Khan about purchasing some of the publications. I'm assuming that Amina means your own books, Jane, which you've been showing us through the presentation. So I think we might take that up separately and individually with her. We presumably have a way of contacting her. And Nusra Mohammed asks how to sign up for volunteering at the Let's Read Centre. And is there any room for flexibility? So here you have a possible new volunteer.
Oh, wonderful, that's great. Yes, if you just get in touch with us at letsreadoman@gmail.com. Someone is actually making us a website, which is wonderful. So very soon we'll have our own website. But yes, at the moment, it's a case of just emailing us. Let's read, LETSREADOMAN @gmail.com. And we'll get back to you. We would love more volunteers. And we don't mind because in the mall, unfortunately, we have to be open from 10 till 8 p.m. In fact, they would like us to be open till 10 p.m. But so 8 till 10. So we have to make sure that all those shifts every single day, 7 days a week, that we have people there. So yeah, we definitely need more volunteers.
Well, thank you very much. We can put that website up on our website, on the Society's website, to avoid ambiguity. It's so difficult to do these things. For one thing, people are always not quite sure whether it's .om or .com.
Yes, it's .com.
So here we are. Sabella is asking if the charity is still completely funded by benefactors, or might the government participate with some subsidy in the future?
Well, I don't think that's likely at the moment. You know, with the oil price always coming back up now, it has been down quite low, and so, you know, there's not really, you know, the revenue available, I think, through the ministries. But definitely, we're hoping for more corporate help, sponsorship. We've had you know, individuals give us money, which is wonderful. Like, for example, when we went to Kabura, people were giving me money to go and buy goods to take, which was wonderful, or giving me goods, giving us things to take with us. But yeah, so individuals, or you know, we might get, say, you know, some money, 500 riyals, for example, for the prizes for the writing competition or the summer reading challenge, or we ask children to do video themselves telling a story for young children. So those kind of things, we always make sure we get money for that. But yeah, our resources are dwindling, that's for sure. Our funds are dwindling at the moment. But I'm hoping that, you know, because we do really want to start, you know, as you said, you asked about libraries in villages, and I don't think there are. And I think, you know, sometimes when a child is living in a family with lots of other children, it's very difficult for them to concentrate on their homework. They don't have, you know, a quiet space and the opportunity to actually go and use the internet, you know, or research, as you said. So it would be wonderful if we could have more libraries in small villages across the country. But we need obviously money for that.
Thank you. Can you tell us, can we go back to the literary festival? Can you tell us a little bit more about that? A couple of people have asked if it will be multilingual. Is it English and Arabic and anything else?
It is English
and
Arabic. Yes, it will be in English and in Arabic. At the moment, predominantly English, but we've got quite a few Omani authors who signed up for it. And it's across, you know, many different countries. We've got and genres as well. We've got, for example, your own historical works, Stuart, and then we've got Right Honourable Lubna Perusi, who's written lovely children's books. Yeah, so we've got a quite a wide range, as I say, about 25 books. I don't know if you know Hamish Cowell, his sister-in-law is Cressida Cowell, who wrote How to Trade in the Dragon. She's, I think, the children's laureate in Britain. And so Cressida Cowell has sent her interview, you know, her video clip to us. And we've also had in America the poet, children's poet laureate. She's also said, so we've got you know, a lot of different people, a lot of different authors, people like Nabil Al-Busaibi, who went to the Arctic and you know, has done lots of adventurous things in Oman. And Rob Baldwin, who you probably know about marine life in Oman. And I think they're just about to publish a book about mammals in Oman. So yeah, lots of people. Andrew Spalton, not just you know, people who've written books about Oman, like the Arabian leopard, but also you know, authors, Arabic-speaking authors as well, who've written books for adults, fiction, children's books, poetry books. Generally, you know, we're always looking for more authors. If you know of anyone who'd like to be involved, because, as I say, it's starting soon, and it will be, some of it will be online, and now some of it will be recorded in the studio, because that's, you know, luckily we're able to do that now, and we haven't been able to do that because of COVID. So that's what we're hoping. Good.
Well, yeah, I wish it every success. Of course, authors love talking about their books, and on top of that, they love people listening to them talking about their books. But what they like most of all is when the books fly off the shelves. So are you doing this in collaboration with a bookshop in Oman or anywhere else?
Well, we have our charity bookshop, and in the charity bookshop, which has got thousands and thousands of books, we have got one area which is for the new books, as I said, like the books that we've done ourselves, or books that authors living in Oman have asked us to sell for them, because, you know, it's not always, you know, easy to find the outlets for selling your books in Oman. I've just been working on Dr. Akbar's book, which is about his father, Dr. Rafay, and that book is about to be published. His father came as a doctor from India in 1958 and kept diaries all the way throughout. So there's about 500 photographs in the book, and you know, that's going to be an amazing book. But so yes, we are going to be selling in our shop, so people can come to a lot of the interviews will take place in, you know, there's a sort of a big hall next to our shop, so we can have an audience come and listen to the interview, book signing sessions, selling the book in the shop. So we hope that's how it will work. And we've also got books sent to us by, I know Magazines, for example, has some copies of your book that we can try and sell when the time comes. And so yeah, that's what we're hoping.
That's in the family bookshop, or?
No, it's in our Let's Read charity bookshop.
Oh, it's all in your, yeah.
Yeah, and it's on the 3rd floor of Oman Avenue Mall.
Good. Well, thank you very much. I think we're just about coming to the end of our time. I'm just flipping through the questions to see whether I've missed anybody. Oh yes, here's a nice question to end up with then. Can you tell us what, from your personal point of view, has been the most rewarding aspect of your work with Let's Read?
I think what I loved the most was seeing children signing their own books, where they've, the collection of stories, the winning stories from the writing competition, in a book, like, for example, the stories of our ancestors, and seeing them with a queue of parents and people, and also their peers, coming to buy their book, and for them signing their own book. And also we try to put their work into print, into the newspapers. Newspapers have been very helpful. The press has always been, very helpful, and advertising, but also printing the winning stories of every competition that we do. So I think that's lovely to see the children feel confident. In fact, there was a boy from this where he came back to us after he'd won and got his work in the book, and he came back and he said, "I've written a book." He'd written his own little book. I haven't seen it yet, but he's on his second book. So I think that's lovely to see children have confidence in themselves, and yeah, that's what it's all about.
Yeah, good. Well, thank you very much. Meanwhile, I've seen a last-minute comment from Penny Ward, who suggests that J.K. Rowling would be a coup to get.
Oh, well, that she certainly would. I thought I was actually speaking to Elif Shafak on Facebook, because I was asking, I saw her name and I emailed her and asked her, and she said, "Well, I am a writer, I am Elif Shafak," but she said, "I'm not the Elif Shafak," unfortunately. So yeah, but, yeah, if we could get anyone like J.K. Rowling, would be absolutely amazing.
Well, Jane, we'd like to thank you very much.
Well, thank you very much.
Very interesting presentation, and also many congratulations on all that you have achieved in this very important sphere. It's so important.
Well, it's a drop in the ocean, but every bit helps.
Yeah. No, I think it's a lot more than a drop. I think it's somewhere between a drop and a flood, but it's really useful. So congratulations and many thanks, and we'll put some of that information up on the website. There is, let me just check on one thing before we sign off. There's a recording available. Yeah, we have been recording this session, so it will be possible for people to see it from the Anglo-Omani Society website in due course, as soon as we've got it uploaded.
That's wonderful.
Thank you to all our listeners and watchers. And thank you to you, Jane. I will say goodbye.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you.